Hello. Let me see. All right. I think it worked. Yay. Hello. This is session 1 of our Do Less virtual book club. So, even though we can't be with each other in person right now, let's all imagine that we're cozied up together in like big overstuffed chairs and beautiful floor cushions, and that we've got, cups of tea and dark chocolate and delicious, ripe, red organic grapes that make that great snapping sound when you eat them, and maybe some like salted almonds, and just, that we're all together with snacks, cozy, talking about doing less and talking about our relationship with productivity. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I would love to welcome those of you who are joining in live. Just let me know where you're from. I see Caroline in Sweden. Hi. I see Christy. I know that we have Do Less readers from all over the globe. I'm just tucking these little, aren't these little things in sweaters annoying? Like the little hanger things. I should just cut them out because I don't use those. All right. So Aditi is here from Zurich. Welcome. So happy to have you. Robin in Canada, Whitney in Louisville. Hi, Whitney. So good to have you here. All right, we have Nicole in Italy, Sherry in New York City, Sampada in India, Michelle in Austin, Kelly in Southern California, Stephanie, Texas. Hi, Jamie. Kristen from Cape Breton, Lynn in LA, Jennifer, Colorado. We have more LA. Poughkeepsie, Columbus, Ohio, Mackenzie, amazing. More folks in Austin, Minnesota. I am just so thrilled that you're all here. And I would love to hear from a few people. What had you say yes? Like, why did you want to get this book? Why did you want to get Do Less? Whether you have the paperback and it's arrived yet, or you have a previous version of the hardcover, the Audible, the Kindle, whatever, it's all good. I would love to know what had you say yes to joining this book club, because there's a lot of things vying for our time and attention at all times. And in this particular moment in history, I think that we're especially strained with our attention because, oddly, even though we've been asked to shelter in place, there's so much more information coming at us. And so Shelly is here because she wants to help feel in control. Michelle wants a new relationship with productivity. I love it. Great. Amazing. Anyone else want to share? Tanisha says the cycle phases and productivity, since I'm not yet a mom, so I can be as ready as possible. Beautiful. And Allison said, since Christmas, this is the book that I gift to girlfriends the most. It's gorgeous content, and it's so applicable to our lives. All right. Melissa wanted a deeper dive after Make Time for Business. Jennifer says there's too much stress in the world. I've always liked doing less, but I feel shamed for that. So that's interesting, Jennifer. And I want to come back to that. I'm just going to make a note. Shamed for doing less. Okay, great. All right, Whitney, because I know I've been doing too much and that I could do much less with greater positive impact and joy. Kristen's also been doing too much. Yep. A lot of folks in that. Will says, I'm so tired of feeling like I'm not enough if I'm not busy. And one of my values is breaking that cycle. Yes. All right. Well, Britta is here to reclaim her energy in sync with her body. I'm so glad you're here. Fiona, welcome. Sophia said that Elena Brower talked about the book. So I'm so thrilled. I love me some Elena Brower. Okay, amazing. Well, I'm so thrilled that you're all here. We have so many folks live, and I'm just really excited. I can't see on this new way of doing a Facebook Live how to tell how many people we have here, but I'll find out later. Um, okay, so as promised, I am going to do these sessions assuming that some people will have the book, some people won't have the book, some people will have done the reading, some people won't have done the reading, because you know what? We all have a lot on our plates. And we all have a lot vying for our attention right now, especially with the news and then many folks having kids home and trying to work at the same time and trying to pivot their businesses or try to figure out what's going on with their job or trying to homeschool or just like, and honestly, just if you're a sensitive person, which I certainly am, and I would imagine many folks who are resonating with the do less message are also sensitive people, I would imagine that you are just feeling overloaded energetically. I know for me, I've always been somebody who's pretty well boundaried around what information I allow in. But right now, I'm so much more boundaried around it. I am unfollowing accounts on Instagram. I'm unsubscribing from email lists. I am not I am every few days checking in on the news, but it's not like new information and every time I check in it just fries my nervous system. And I know that frying my nervous system is definitely not good for my well-being, and it's certainly not good for my productivity. And so during this time when there's so much stress and so much anxiety in the world, it's pervasive. We can, for those of us who are sensitive and tend to feel other people's feelings and take on what's going on in the world, this is a even more intense time because of our limited bandwidth, literally with our actual time, but then also with our limited bandwidth because we have an increase in information. We have an increase in people putting out free stuff. I mean, every time I open Instagram, I can't even believe the number of people who are live, and we have an increase in news, and we have an increase just in load of stress. And so if you're feeling like you don't have the bandwidth for anything more, welcome. You're in the right place. Like, this is the only place that I can think of that we should be right now. I mean, so many places, of course, are wonderful to be right now, but of course, I could not have anticipated that when I decided to do a rewrite of Do Less, and when I found out that the paperback and the rewritten paperback would be out in April of 2020, I had no idea that we were going to have a global pandemic and that so many people were going to suddenly be asked to do less and literally stay in their homes. But then simultaneously, so many people like myself were going to be asked to do more because it's like, oh, also parent 24 hours, well, not 24 hours a day. My kids are sleep. Like, let's say parent, 13 hours a day, run your full-time business and also try to figure that out. Now, I'm grateful I have such little ones, so I'm not also trying to navigate homeschooling, but at the same time they're so little that that there's no like, oh, they're going to go do their own thing, whereas older kids who are homeschooling might also have that same thing. So, all right. So with all of that, with all the swirl, wherever you are in any of it, I want to invite us all to just come into the present moment and come into our bodies in this moment, because what Do Less is actually about is accessing the power source that is your body and that is your biology to do your best work in the most efficient way and to refuel yourself so you are joyful and fulfilled and living your best life, essentially. And so it still applies right now. In fact, it applies more because I can't think of a time when we need the tools that sustain us. If you've been in any kind of practice of self-care or a spiritual practice or tending to more of the energetics of your life and of your work and of the world, now is the time to harvest the work that you've done in that area. Now is the time to say, oh, My practices are for moments like this. Like that's why we call it a meditation practice or a yoga practice or a spiritual practice. We're practicing for when we really need it. And right now is when we really need it. And so I'm going to invite you to wherever you are, whether you're standing or if you are sitting, to just come into this moment. You don't need to close your eyes, but if you feel called to close your eyes, go for it. And notice, just feel your feet on the floor and notice gravity. Notice how your seat is being held by gravity. Notice the constant of feeling held close to Mother Earth. And notice that you don't have to do anything to be here. You don't have to consciously do anything to be held by gravity. And I'm curious, as you feel gravity holding you, and you feel the constant of that, and how that's never changing. I'm curious what you notice. Who wants to share what you're noticing in your body when you feel gravity, when you consciously feel yourself being held and being, just like being on the surface of the earth. Let me know if anybody wants to weigh in, and just any sensations you notice in your body, any thoughts that come up. Just, is there anything that you notice? Yeah, so Sarah is sharing that she feels calm. Aditi is feeling safety and security. Stephanie, safety. Tanisha, grounded. Beautiful. I love it. Yeah, Smadar is peacefulness. Kelly, quiet comfort. Robin, grounded and at peace. Joe, I feel grounded and stable. Jennifer, safe, secure, breathing deeper. Whitney, permission to just be in the moment, calm, clear. Tracy, a sense of relief. Nicole, tingling, peace and love. Barbara, it feels effortless, light. Fiona, heaviness, but in a secure way. I love that. Okay. Oh, yeah. So that's a tool that you have access to 24 hours a day. Gravity's always here holding us. And if we want to dive deeper into the conversation around productivity, our work, time, our relationship with productivity, it's really important that we start by signaling safety in our bodies. And so many of you used the word safe or safety. I didn't give you that word. I didn't say, okay, now we're going to do a practice that's going to make you feel more safe. I didn't say that. But the word that came up for so many was safety, relaxed, calm. So just so you know, the mechanics of what we're doing here, this is not, this is a spiritual practice, but it's also a physical, biological practice. When we notice gravity and when we allow ourselves to tune into being held, what that actually does is it signals the parasympathetic nervous system. So it signals rest and restore. It signals rest and digest, which is the parasympathetic nervous system, as opposed to the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is fight or flight or freeze. The parasympathetic is rest, digest, heal. And so in this moment, as microcosms, we are all microcosms of what's going on globally. What's needed is healing on so many possible levels, which I will not get into today. But if you want to know more about kind of my thoughts on what's going on and the opportunities, then definitely make sure that you're listening to the Kate and Mike show each week, the podcast that I do with my husband, and we're sharing our perspectives and links and resources and, ways to really not only just survive this time, but actually thrive and be part of the opportunity for transformation that is inherent in this moment. So Kristen is sharing that she feels a little overwhelmed. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Kristen, because every now and again, when we use that tool, the to get tuned in with gravity, every now and again, somebody will feel overwhelmed. Many people will feel safe, and occasionally it will kick up some kind of something in your body. So what I'm going to recommend for you, Kristen, and anyone else who felt resistance or overwhelm or anxiety arise, just know that I would love for you to pay attention to where that is in your body. And I learned a tool from Dr. Valerie Rain, who wrote a great book called Patriarchy, Stress Disorder, which is a must read for everyone. I know that you're reading Do Less right now and recommending other books. I don't know, but I'm going to do it because I can't help myself. I'm writing it into the comments here, Patriarchy, Stress Disorder. So you want to go ahead and after you read Do Less, read Patriarchy, Stress Disorder. And she taught me a tool yesterday that she calls Do More, Do Less. And so if you are doing a nervous system healing practice to signal parasympathetic, rest and restore, heal, and you have something come up like resistance or just a feeling of tightness or blockage anywhere, you can practice this do more, do less tool. And the do more, do less tool, how it works is like yesterday I was in a session with her and I started to feel like a tightness in my solar plexus right underneath my rib cage. And she asked me to go into that space and ask, what is that sensation in your body asking for? And this is not an intellectual practice. The whole idea of Do Less and the whole premise of the book is that our bodies have this innate wisdom that all we need to do is follow it rather than try to overpower it or reprogram it with our minds. So we've been taught that our value lies in our intellect and in our minds. But what this whole system is about is actually using your body as a power source and leaning into the wisdom of your body as a guidepost to allow you consciously to do less and allow your body to do what it does so beautifully. And if we allow our bodies to do what they already are programmed to do so beautifully, we don't have to do nearly as much consciously, and we can sort of be along for the ride and get into that momentum. So anytime you feel resistance come up, energetic blockage, discomfort, whatever, you go into that place. And so I went into that place and I was just feeling a tightness and like a stuckness under in my solar plexus. And so she asked me what message did it have for me? What did it want? And it just said that I wanted to I think it said I just wanted to curl up. And so she said, okay, great. So go into that. So do more of what that area of your body is asking for. So I just actually literally curled up because I wanted to curl into myself. That's what this area was asking for. So she said, okay, great. So actually do the curling up and do the that feeling, like do more of what's being asked. So I went into and I heightened even that feeling, which was really powerful. And then what was so amazing is I was allowing that feeling to be present. And so many of us right now are having feelings that are hard to feel, right? Fear and anxiety, depression, overwhelm, um, irritation, anger, so many, diverse feelings, and sometimes joy and elation and presence and sadness and grief and all of it. And we have not been taught in our culture that feeling all of those things, within an hour or within 2 hours or within a day or a span of days, we have not been taught that that's valuable. We've been taught that that's crazy, but it's not. All of our feelings have a message for us, and all of them are valid. And so I loved learning this do more, do less tool, because once I gave my body what it was asking, which was to curl into myself, it shifted, as it always does, because emotions move. And so that feeling I was having, that stuck energy, shifted and relaxed. And then it was open again. And so for anybody who has feelings coming up, and if you want to label them, give words to them, that's beautiful. If you want to lean into the experience in your body, that's for me how I feel that I can move them. For me, labeling, saying like I'm sad right now is really helpful, but then talking more about it often doesn't actually help, because it's a stuck energy in my body. And so healing, like moving through it, is not going to happen in my mind because it's in my body. Now everybody's different. Sometimes having a good talk about it is useful, but I'm going to encourage us for the month of April, while we're doing this book club, to lean into the physical feeling rather than lean into the thought. So hopefully that helps. Does anyone have questions? I just went through a lot there. So I'm curious if anyone has questions about the nervous system, signaling safety, that do more, do less tool I just shared with you. Any questions about Valerie Rain or her book, Patriarchy, Stress Disorder? Chrissy says, I struggle with the emotions moving. It's hard for me to identify and sit in the feelings. Yes, it is hard for most people because no one ever taught us how to do it. And so all you need to do is just notice, like, where do I feel it in my body? Okay, so I'm feeling like a heaviness. I'm feeling a heaviness in my chest. And so where is it in your body? What does it feel like? So rather than saying I'm feeling depressed in my chest, saying I have a heaviness in my chest is a very different thing, because sadness is a label versus heaviness is a descriptor. It feels heavy. And then you can just notice, like, does it have a shape? Does it have a color? Does it have a texture? Does it have a temperature? And those things, just sort of noticing the the non-judgmental description of the feeling in your body is very useful. I've been doing Taryn Toomey's The Class every day. Her live streaming. Sometimes it is live screaming because she has us make noises, but the live streamed workout. Has anybody done The Class before? She has a bunch of teachers who do it. It's so amazing for moving through, for like coming up against resistance and then moving through the feeling and just noticing where it happens in our body, but not needing to articulate and like call our therapist about it, like just literally moving the energy through. So for you, Chrissy, and anyone else, you can get a 2-week for free live streaming, what is it called, like a trial membership for the class, and that might be useful for you. Okay, great. Holly would like to know how you thought about writing the book and how you came up with it. Okay. Oh, yeah, Tracy, it's Taryn Toomey, The Class. Here, let me write it in the. Okay. So I will tell you the story of how I came up with the book in a minute. Mariette, I'm probably pronouncing your name wrong. So if I feel isolated or not loved or old complexities arise, should I try to feel where that's located in my body? Yes. Okay, great. I just posted, it's just, if you just do a quick search for Taryn Toomey, The Class, it'll come right up. Okay. And I just put her name in the chat here. Okay. So thank you for the excellent questions. Really quick, the way I came up with this book, some of you may have heard the story if you've heard me on a podcast, and the story is in the book itself. But the very brief version is that basically, when I got pregnant with my first daughter, Penelope, I was so exhausted, and it was having grown up as a person with parents who are hyper productive, both in the medical field, and grew up in New England where we're very focused on being productive and resilient and capable, like the good old puritanical work ethic. I had never, so I was pregnant at 32. I had never had a situation where I couldn't overcome it by being stronger or like pushing harder or doing something to fix it. But I was so tired during my pregnancy, and I couldn't be strong and capable for it to go away. And it was a major, major mindfuck because I had always identified as being someone who was capable and okay and with it and together and having it together. And then suddenly I just didn't feel like I had it together anymore. And I felt like I was failing. And as I share this story, I'm wondering if anyone resonates with feeling that way in this moment. Are you the one who's always been strong in your family? Are you the one who people call for advice? Are you the one who always cleans up the loose ends that other people drop? Are you the sibling who was like the good one? Are you, just let me know. Yeah, Jenna Lee says, when I hear this story, it's me. Katrine says, yep, so much. And then in this moment, just drawing the parallels in the middle of my story here, in this moment, none of us know what the fuck is going on. None of us feel particularly capable. And yes, yeah, we're looking to the government and the media to tell us what's going on. They don't know. They've never been through this before either, right? So we're all really out of our bounds. And so that's being kicked up for many of us. And then we're feeling like, I don't know what to do in this moment. I don't know what's right. And you may be charged with leading communities right now who are looking to you to say, well, what should I do with my business? What should I, what should I do about my job? What should I do about the stimulus package? All of that stuff. And so if you are feeling like, I can't, things are no longer out of my control, which PS they never were, but now it's just like this heightened realization that things that we thought were super stable are not super stable. Things that we thought were in our control are not in our control. And so it brings up this feeling of not being capable or not being okay. And then the not being okay is exacerbated by the beating ourselves up for not being okay and not being capable right now, or not being able to just like push harder to figure this out. Now, is anybody feeling this friction between wanting to pause and take space during this time and feeling really called inward and really called to do less, but at the same time feeling like they either, because they literally need to work to make money and feed their family, or they literally, like, there is something they literally have to do, or just feeling like they should be doing a lot during this time because suddenly there's extra time, or suddenly they don't have a commute, or suddenly, we're home, so we could be exercising, or all those things. Like, is anyone else feeling that push and pull and that tug right now? Yeah. So Nicole says yes. Katrine says yes. Alex, I know you and I have talked about the friction. Kelly, absolutely. Robin has lost motivation. Yes. And that's like a wonderful place to be right now. Okay. Yeah. And Erica is just articulating, when we have always been the one to be able to come up with solutions and we are faced with a moment where we can't come up with the solution, it's an identity crisis. And so for those who have always identified as capable, and you've always been the strong one, or you've always been the capable one, you've always been the one who has it together, in moments like this when none of us has it together, it's way harder. And so what happened is I had that pregnancy. I did not feel like I had it together. I felt like there was something wrong with me because I couldn't overcome it through pushing harder. And then I went through the birth experience, which was my first birth experience was really traumatic. I'm happy to say that today is Ruby's second birthday. She's my second baby. And her birth was like this beautiful reclamation. So I had two really different birth experiences. But Penelope's was really traumatic. I had a planned home birth and labored at home for 12 hours until I was 10 centimeters. And then Penelope was coming out with one leg up and one leg down, which is not a good way to come out of the birth canal. And so I had to be transferred to the hospital in an ambulance. At that point, I couldn't walk anymore because I was pushing. My body was pushing, and I had to have a surprise C-section. And then Penelope wasn't breathing when she came out, and so she had to be resuscitated, and it was like a lot of drama. And then she was really sick, and we stayed in the hospital for 7 days. And I just really, like, with the hormonal shifts, I plummeted. I just lost it, and I really had a brush with postpartum psychosis. And then over time, I really developed postpartum anxiety and insomnia. So with a baby who was really sick and waking herself up, screaming, crying, bloody from scratching so hard because she had eczema, such severe eczema, that first year of motherhood was incredibly exhausting, as it is for most people. And then having a sick baby, and then, having our business and trying to get all that together with very, very limited childcare. We had 10 hours of childcare at that time, which right now, when I say that, I'm like, 10 hours of childcare would be amazing because I have no childcare. The reason I'm able to do this right now is because Ruby is taking a nap and Penelope is doing quiet time, and I do have my amazing husband Mike. So, but I don't consider him childcare because he's their dad. But I do have an incredible partner. I'm so grateful for that. So I had this whole experience of this first year of parenthood, which was pretty brutal. And I just didn't have the bandwidth to pay attention to our business in any way, shape, or form like I had previously. And again, having identified so much as the capable together one, and suddenly not being that person at all. Like, I felt like I was losing my mind and losing myself 24 hours a day almost. It was a very, very difficult year. And then we sat with our accountant after that year, and we realized that despite having worked less than half the amount of time we had ever worked in our adult lives, we had made the same amount of revenue. And so I was like, what? If we could make the same amount of revenue working less than half the amount of time, with all the psychological and emotional issues I was having, with all the health issues that Penelope was having, with all the health issues I was having because I kept getting mastitis and I didn't have enough milk supply and all the nursing stuff. If all of that was going down and we could still make the same amount of revenue, while I would never want to repeat that year again because it sucked, I thought, well, there has to be something that we did that could be replicated for us to be able to, in the future, do less and get the same or better results without having to do it due to crisis. Now, here we are again, 4.5 years later, in a situation where we have way less bandwidth because Mike and we had 4-day-a-week full-time childcare, and now we have none. But we still have a company and we still have customers expecting things of us. And we still have the same expenses. And so here we are again. And I know so many people are in this exact same situation where suddenly we have way less time, but we need to get the same results. And so do less came from that. It came from that. And then what happened is I started to look at, okay, what are the things that we did and how could those be replicated? And then my period came back. So the accountant meeting was like in September, and then I got my period back in October. Penelope was 13 months old. I was still nursing. But when I got my period back, I got so excited about my period for the first time in my life. So I'd never been excited about it before. I thought it was annoying. I thought it was just like, oh my God. And I never had a tampon and it was heavy and I was bleeding through pants and it was just like, ugh. And people who talked about the wisdom of the menstrual cycle, I was like, okay, you with your feather earrings. No judgment to people who wear feather earrings. I totally have feather earrings now. At that time, I don't wear them a lot because, toddlers pulling on things. But at that time, like, that's really how I felt. I was like, this is not for me. But all of a sudden, I was into it. I was like, this is really cool. And I started learning about these 4 phases of the menstrual cycle. And I started learning about how they overlap with the 4 phases of the moon and the 4 seasons and even the 4 trimesters of pregnancy. Even though I know technically the baby's only in there for 3, there it really is the 4th trimester, which is the 3 months after your baby is born. And I started to become fascinated by the cyclical, predictable, energetic ebbs and flows that we go through as women, that we go through every month because of the moon, that we go through every year because of the seasons, and that we go through as humans because of our creativity and moments of production versus moments of rest. And so Do Less came from that study and that that exploration, and the tools could not be more relevant. They could not be more relevant than they are right now in this moment. So I'm so glad. I mean, quite frankly, this might sound weird to say, but like, I'm so grateful that I wrote this so that I can go back and be like, oh yeah, what? Like, how am I supposed to keep our business going when I have no childcare and like I have a toddler and a preschooler who are constantly all day like, mama, 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 right? But I rewrote the book, as many of you know. I did a rewrite because I wanted to make sure that women of all parental statuses, whether they have kids, they don't have kids, whatever that choice has been, or if they didn't feel they had the choice, I wanted them all to know that this is for them, because this does not really have anything exclusively to do with motherhood. And I had heard from so many women that it resonated with them so deeply, even though they were not moms. And so I didn't want the subtitle to say for busy moms anymore. First of all, the word busy just feels like very overly identified with hustle culture and with our this cultural belief that you're more valuable the more you do, and oh, I'm so busy, like we wear busy with a badge of honor. And so I didn't like that word. And then I just really wanted it to be more inclusive. So now the subtitle is A Revolutionary Approach to Time and Energy Management for Ambitious Women. And I think ambition can be described in a lot of different ways, but to me it's women who have like a burning in them to make an impact on the world. And that could be career wise, it could be with their kids, it could be with their garden, it could be with spreading joy, it could be with their art. So many different ways ambition can show up, but ambitious really resonates with me, so that's why I chose that word. And then I did go through and I changed some of the examples and the data and the stories in the book, but I didn't change any of like the core content. So no matter what version of the book you have, you're going to get like the same fundamental concepts. All right. So Michelle says that she doesn't have kids, but she related so much with the content. Okay, I'm just going to take a water break. Does anybody, I'm glad that you enjoy my feather earrings quote. So anybody have any questions before I dive in? Because we're going to talk a little bit about our culture's obsession with productivity and what that's about, and then how we can reinvent our own relationship with productivity and decide on our own definition. Zuzana asks, do you also talk about food or exercise according to the cycle? I am not an expert in that, Zuzana. There are so many wonderful people who talk about it. I really love BirthFit. BirthFit has an incredible workout program for the cycles. I know Jen Pike has also an exercise program for the cycles. Elisa Vitti has wonderful work around this. Nicole Jardim, whose new book, Fix Your Period, is out very shortly, has some incredible work about food and exercise. There's also a great book called Roar, which is about female cycles and exercise. And then there's another Instagram account. It was something about like women are not just small men. Does anybody know what that one is? Um, she has some really great data also. So let me just. Let's see if somebody else happened to know. Oopsie. I almost just ended the live. Okay. All right. So anyway, but I just gave you a few resources, and you can learn so much more about aligning your exercise and food with your cycle, especially if you're wanting to heal your cycle. I really do recommend Fix Your Period by Nicole Jardim. I'll just put that down. Okay, awesome. Do I talk about menopause and how to figure out a cycle? Yeah. So, Robin, once you're in menopause, you're having a whole different hormonal experience. But most women I have spoken with in menopause feel deeply, deeply aligned with the moon cycle. So, you don't have to figure out a cycle particularly. You can just follow the moon and notice your energetic ebbs and flows in concert with the moon. And that's really, really powerful. Jen, I don't have anything in particular to say about the pink supermoon, but if you want to learn more, I really love following Chani Nicholas and also Jennifer Rassiopi and Jeanette Lewis for astrology. So you can check them out. Let me just write them out for you. Chani Nicholas, Jennifer Rassiopi, and Jeanette Lewis, who is at Inner Sun Alchemy on Facebook and Instagram. Okay. Great. Next up, Mia says, when following the cycles, does it make more sense to follow your own personal cycles and then the moon cycle as support? I find it confusing honoring my cycle when I know the moon is in a different cycle. So, Mia, this is literally the most common question I get. So you can check out episode. Let me just make sure I'm telling you the right episode. I'm going to get it for you here. Northrup. Here it is. It is episode number 143. So, Mia and anyone else who has the question, do I follow my moon cycle, the moon cycle, or do I follow my own menstrual cycle? Check out that episode. But the short answer to you is you follow your own personal cycle. So if you're having an unmedicated, normal-ish, normal is like there's kind of a range of normal, but like, regular-ish menstrual cycle, then you would want to track that and notice how you feel energetically. So just, do I feel more outward? Do I feel more inward? Do I feel more focused? Do I feel less focused? Do I feel more intuitive? Do I feel more verbal? Do I feel more social? Do I feel more like being by myself? Like, how do I feel? And so really my first step for you, for anybody who's feeling out of control in their life, and I think all of us are feeling out of control in our lives in one way or another right now, and certainly when I came up with the Do Less methodology, I had a sick baby, and I felt very out of control. Even 13 months in, I still really didn't feel like I had the hang of motherhood in any way, shape, or form. Oddly, now with 2 children, I feel way more stable. But what really brought me back to a sense of control and what helped me heal my postpartum anxiety, which is not different from the anxiety that many of us are feeling right now, was actually tracking my cycle. Because what it allowed me to do was to have something predictable that I could rely on. And what I felt in control of was knowing what day of my cycle I was on, what phase of my cycle I was in, and then asking, how do I feel? And then being able to organize my day based on my body and being able to fit more of myself into my day as opposed to control time. So I used to think that the solution to time management was to fit more in my day. Like if I could just fit more things into my day, then I would become a time management expert. What I realized is that in order to be the master of my life and master time and energy management, I needed to fit more of myself into my day. And what that meant was paying closer and closer attention to my own inner landscape and the energetic ebbs and flows that had always been there, but I had either judged or blamed or ignored or beat myself up for or tried to get rid of. Because our culture has taught us that there's only one way to be. And that way to be is hyper productive, pushing, working, busy, social, out there, and really going for it. And those qualities are only one half of the spectrum. The other half of the spectrum is inward and slower and more receptive and more intuitive, more cyclical, less direction oriented, more experience oriented. And I talk about in the book the sort of the dichotomy between traditionally feminine energy and masculine energy, not meaning men and women, but just the different types of energy that we have out there. And I talk about that, I believe, in chapter 2, Your Worth, Your Cycles, and Momentum. Yeah, it's on page 12. So there are really these two different distinct types of energy in the world. There's a lot of different types of energy, but this idea that there's sort of the yin and the yang. There's the exhale, there's the inhale, and that our culture really hyper celebrates just one side of the spectrum, more of the solar outward energy. But what we're skipping out on and what we need so much more of in our world, in our own lives, is the inward, is the nurturing, the intuitive, the looking for win-win scenarios. So looking at the we instead of the me, receptivity, community, flow, and being more in a space of being over doing. And so when I started to track my own cyclical energy, I felt so held by this cycle that was happening in my body, but also felt bigger than me. So it was me, but it wasn't me. And it just felt like a connection to God. That's all I can describe it as, because these 4 phases that I went through every month were the same 4 phases that the moon goes through every month. And they were the same 4 phases that the earth goes through every year. And I just was in amazement, and I continue to be in amazement. I get teary talking about it. Like, that's, our bodies are cosmically connected to everything. And that's happening within us. We are nature. We are the cosmos. It's in us. And if those same very cycles are responsible for gravity, which we started out this session by feeling, and are also responsible for the 4 seasons on the planet, which are somewhat responsible for life on Earth, don't you think that they might be good enough for us to organize our calendars around? And don't you think that they might be worth listening to and honoring? So go with your body first. That was a very long answer to your question, Mia. Go with your body first. And then the moon is just sort of an extra energetic flavor. So, for example, right now I'm in my luteal phase. I'm waiting for my period to arrive. It's a few days late. I'm not surprised. This has been a very stressful, weird month. And when we go through dramatic changes, whether it's a move or a wedding or whatever it is, oftentimes our cycle will shift. So I am in my luteal phase during a full moon energy, which just means that I'm more inward. I'm wanting more space, wanting to slow down, kind of having a nesting energy, wanting to get rid of things, wanting to tie up loose ends, detail oriented. But it's also the full moon energy, so it's just like kind of adds an intensity to it. So so Julie, there's nothing wrong with cycles that don't align with the moon. I just gave you an example. You really want to follow your own cycle first and use that as your primary source of information, because really we're trying to answer the question, how do I feel? That's really the question we're trying to answer here with this. All of this work is just, how do I feel? And then my invitation to you is to do what you feel like doing. Really, at the end of the day, if I were to sum up do less as one message, it is to ask yourself how you feel, and that it is to support yourself and love yourself by doing the thing you feel like doing, and to know and to trust that when we do the thing we feel like doing, when we act in the way our body is asking us to act, that everything that matters gets done and we attract all the good stuff. So that's really what's going on here. Zuzana, if you have an IUD or are using any kind of birth control, the whole cycle will really be different. So I would recommend just tracking the moon and noticing your ebbs and flows cyclically, energetically through the moon. There is a tool called the Daily Energy Tracker. It's in the Do Less Planner, the physical version. If anyone has the physical version, it's also in the digital version. And it looks like this. And this is really the tool that developed from the journaling practice that I started, that turned into the book Do Less. So it really asks you in this 2-page spread. It takes you about 3 minutes to go through this. There's a morning couple of questions and there's an evening couple of questions, and you just do a really quick inventory, asking yourself, what's the day of your cycle? What phase of your cycle are you in if you are cycling? And then what's the phase of the moon and any other astrological info. Asks about your sleep. And then really the question is, what do I feel like doing today? And how can I honor that even in a small way? And it's to get to know your own cyclical ebbs and flows, whether they are in concert with your menstrual cycle or in concert with the moon, so that you begin to get to know your own cyclical energy, because that unlocks the code to your greatest work, to your productivity, to your creativity, and to your greatest sense of fulfillment and joy, and really being all of who you are. Your cyclical energy, loving yourself enough to pay attention to it, is one of the most powerful acts you can do for self-love, for self-care, but then also right now for a sense of safety and security, to know like, oh, yeah, the world is chaotic, but my body is still here and the moon is still here. And it's doing this amazing cyclical thing no matter what's going on the news. And if you want to signal safety, I'll tell you what, like this practice of tracking really signals safety. And I didn't know it at the time, but when I came up with this, what I desperately needed was to calm my nervous system. And I found a way. And the way I found was to track my cyclical energy and then to organize my time around it. Oh, Chrissy, if you want a digital copy of the Do Less Planner, you can just go to katenorthrup.com/planner. So your assignment in the next week, should you choose to take it on, and P.S., you don't have to do anything because this is a Do Less book club. So you don't even have to read the book. You don't have to do any of the assignments. You don't have to show up for the stuff. Isn't that great? Just total permission. Just do less. But if you want to, what I would love for you to do is just, if you have the book already and you haven't read it yet, please read through to page 49. So from the time the book starts, just read through chapter 5. So basically read the book, read part 1 of the book. It's 49 pages. And then what we're going to do next week is start to dive in to the experiments. So there are 14 experiments, but the page 0 through 49 is going to really build the foundation for what those experiments are and why they work. Anyone have questions about anything I shared? Okay. Sarah asks, yes, honey, you can come in. Sarah is sharing that she asks, what would I love? Because the word do still creates a sense of productivity requirements for me. So I love that, Sarah. So you can say, what do I feel? What would I love today? And how can I? I think he's in the basement. Why don't you go check? Okay. Go check if he's in the basement.
What's Sarah?
Oh, Sarah, I was just talking to Sarah. She's a woman who's on this. This is my book club. Do you want to say hi?
Hi.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. So yeah, I love that switch, Sarah. That's beautiful. Okay, great. Let's see. I love Fiona shared that her friends and her started an unbook club and that now is just a message thread and they read nothing. I love that. That's so great. Oh gosh. All right. So Aditi says this is so true. I usually groan when I'm getting my period, but it was strangely reassured. I was strangely reassured by it arriving during the lockdown, signaling continuity and the cyclical nature of life. Aditi, that is so beautiful. That is exactly how I felt in the chaos of new motherhood. I was like, oh, I'm still here and I'm still me and my body is still doing its thing. How magical. And so you don't have to have a period in order for this to apply. You would be using the moon because the moon is still cycling. It's like, oh my gosh, here on Earth, we're just having this chaotic experience and the moon is still out there. Last night was the biggest moon of the year. Full moon, so beautiful. And now the moon is going to wane and then it's going to be a new moon and then the moon is going to wax and then it's going to be a full moon and it's going to keep happening and keep happening and keep happening. And we can count on it because we need to count on right now. We really do. And we can count on our bodies and we can count on the gravitational pull and we can count on the moon. Okay. Great. Thank you all so much. If your book has not shown up, no worries. You don't have to do the reading, but you could start tracking the moon or your period right now. And you can, in the book, in the what is it called? The appendix. There is the daily energy tracker. It's the original version of the daily energy tracker. The one in the Do Less planner has been updated and improved upon, but this one is great. So you can just go and photocopy this or just copy the journal prompts. It's right on page 217. And I think that there's a link in here for how to get that daily energy tracker. Even if you don't have the book yet. Let me find that. I know some of you will have to go because we've been here an hour, but if you don't mind hanging out with me right here, I will see if I can find this link for you. And because you don't have to get the book in order to get that daily energy tracker. Stand by. Isn't it such a joy to just watch me flip through pages? Stand by. Where is it? And if you have to go, I will post the link in the group. So no worries about that. I would love to know if anybody wants to share their takeaways while I look for this link, just their takeaways or anything that stuck out for them during our conversation today. Let me know. All right. Aditi says, thank you for all you do, Kate. You're a light. Love the curls, by the way. You look so cute. Thank you so much. I did a quick shower before I showed up for you after spending the morning with the girls outside. Thank you, Aditi. Anyone else want to share a takeaway or something they learned during this session? I'm going to see if I can find the link to the daily energy tracker for you. I don't know where that is, but I'm going to see if I can find it. All right. Fiona says, I loved this hour. Much needed. Thanks, Kate. So lovely interacting with you on here. I'm very happy you were here, Fiona. Thank you. Kirsten, I'm going to spend the next week doing more of what I feel like doing. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Nicole, thanks for being here. Joe loved the power of feeling gravity and how grounding that is. It really is, isn't it? And that's there all the time. Robin, honoring my energy cycle and napping. Yes. Sampada, hello. What struck me was that doing and being busy could be a response to trauma. Yeah. Yeah. For so many people who are like on Instagram constantly and putting out all this tons of free content and all of that stuff, it may very well be coming from a grounded place of a parasympathetic, rested, calm nervous system, but it may very well be coming from a place of trauma, unprocessed trauma, and just being in fight or flight. And so during this time, it's traumatic. Like the news is really traumatic. Being forced to stay in our homes is traumatic. Not really knowing what's going on is traumatic. And so it may trigger hyper productivity and hyper busyness for some folks. And I just really want to invite you to see if you can do some, spending time outside, spending time with your feet in the grass, shaking, exercising, hugging a tree, doing some deep breathing, breathing into your back ribs. Like there are so many practices for healing your nervous system. But I don't think now is the time to be in reaction. I think now is the time to be signaling healing so that we can come from a place of grounded wholeness. So thank you for bringing that up. Fiona says, my takeaway is to do some central nervous system care by tracking my cycle and feeling more grounded. Going to work on that this week while also trying to step away from news and social media. I'm so bad at this, but I can try. Yeah, Fiona, setting some boundaries around that is so powerful. Christina, body wisdom is all we need, it seems. Yes. And Smadar, I loved the simple concept. Listen to your body and do what you're feeling. And that's it. That is it, my friend. Jolene, loving the reminder to ask my body what it needs. Jenna Lee, love the breathing and sitting with gravity at the beginning. Thank you. Love it. Getting into the wisdom of our bodies. Sarah, yes. Betsy, asking the stuck part of your body what it needs more of. Natalie, loved the perspective. My cycle 4 phases, moon 4 phases, earth 4 seasons. Isn't my cycle enough and amazing? Yes. Alexander, it's just so good to feel in community with you all, in healing. Love it. Jen is going to get some extra sleep without guilt. Christy is going to do less in baby steps. And Britta, accessing our body and asking for what she needs is honoring our highest self. Mary Jen, gravity exercise was amazing. I'm so glad. So I am looking still for this daily energy tracker link and I am not finding it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look after we get off here and I'm going to post the link in the comments and in the group. So thank you all so much for being here. I can't wait to be with you next week. And we are going to talk more about cyclical energy. We are going to talk more about how to be as productive as we need to during this time, but give ourselves permission to not need to be that productive if we don't need to be, and more. So I'm excited to see you next week and have a wonderful, wonderful week. Don't forget, track your cycle, track the moon, calm your nervous system. It's all about the nervous system, my friends. It is all about signaling safety. So anytime you remember this week, feel gravity, signal safety. Feel gravity, signal safety. I love you. Bye.